Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. During the night the Ukrainians tried to attack Belgorod once again with multiple launch rocket systems of Empires. The Russians published the video of air defense at work. The Russians are saying, to be more precise, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported later, somewhere at 7 a.m. of the local time, that during the night the Russians managed to bring down every single Ukrainian missile, and to summarize, they brought down up to 18 missiles of the Empire's multiple launch rocket system. Furthermore, we got more details about the situation in Kharkiv. The local authorities reported that they still haven't managed to restore the supply and support of the region with electricity. Furthermore, some independent bloggers published their own analysis of the situation, and according to some engineering, let's say energy facilities maps, and according to information we have, the Russians managed to let's say to cut the main energy supply lines, and very unlikely, the Ukrainians are able to restore the energy supply in the area in the very near future. Obviously the Russians have some plans for Kharkiv, but for now we still don't see the clear picture in the area. Furthermore, during the previous night we got lots of satellite pictures of the area, lots of fire anomalies starting from Kharkiv to Siversk River. The Russians are bombing the area, and it's let's say we have a feeling, it's like make a feeling that the Russians do have some plans, and there are lots of explosions, lots of attacks, lots of FABs arrives and towards the Ukrainian positions, Ukrainian temporary positions, and Ukrainian command centers, and so on. Furthermore, we got interesting video from the central part of Kupiansk. It's like a very rare, unique footage from the central part of the town. On this video, for example, we can see the use of FAB 1500 on the Ukrainian side of Oskol River, and very likely that the Russians targeted some command center or the headquarters of Ukrainian armed forces inside of the town. Furthermore, we have more and more details about the battle in the area. The Russians, as you can see, reduced the activity. Currently they're trying to concentrate forces, and it's like one can say that the Russians are waiting for something, maybe for some order or the ending of the preparation, let's say in the northern Kupiansk direction. Furthermore, we got the same fire anomalies on the Ukrainian side of Zhiribets River. On this video we see one fire anomaly on this picture, a little bit to the north another one. So these pictures show us that the Russians are moving their focus further behind the Zhiribets River. I'll remind you that this is Zhiribets River with the, let's say, rich network of water reservoirs, and if a month ago the Russians mainly were bombing the, let's say, the Russian side of Zhiribets River, but starting March the Russians moved their focus further to the Ukrainian bank, trying to destroy the Ukrainian reserves and Ukrainian reinforcement. For now we still haven't received any updates regarding the clashes inside of Terny, but I'll remind you that as a result of assaults during the previous days, the Russians managed to almost reach the outskirts and the first building of the village. And now we're moving to Siversk area. After a short operational pause, the Russians restarted their clearing operation using FPV drones against the Ukrainian positions around the Terikon, around the landfill, around Bilogorovka. So the Russians started another attempt to storm the area. I'll remind you that during the previous 2 weeks, Russians made many attempts to enter the territory, to enter the landfill, to enter Ukrainian positions, but most of those attacks were repelled by the Ukrainians, and the Russians, having losses, were forced to fall back. Now the Russians started another attempt. They storm and clear the area from the northern part, from the southern part, and of course the Russians established complete FPV drone control over the main supply roads that goes through from Siversk down to Serebryanka, Grigorievka, and the final destination point is Bilogorovka. On this video we can see another light car with a supply that was heading from Bilogorovka probably towards Siversk, maybe with some wounded, some kind of evacuation, and the Russians start hunting and running for it, but the Ukrainians managed to escape. Interesting details we start receiving from the south in Siversk direction. As you can see, there is no activity from the Russian side, but we start receiving the videos from the Ukrainian side of FPV drone strikes, which confirms that the Russians are starting the concentration forces. If you remember, during the previous week we got a lot of updates of Russian attacks with FPV drones against the trenches, on the Ukrainian positions in the vicinity of Fyodorovka, Razdolovka, and very likely the Russians either are about to finish the clearing process or have already finished that process, and now it's time to start concentrating forces and getting them as close as possible to the line of combat contact. And now it's turn for the Ukrainian side to start FPV droning the Russians in the area. So I expect that the next few days we're going to receive lots of updates from the Ukrainians with FPV drone strikes exactly in the triangles Saka-Ivanseti, Krasnogorovka, Mykolaievka, which will confirm our, let's say, idea, that our projection that very likely the Russians are going to attack in Razdolovka and Fyodorovka, and this attack is going to take place probably maybe during the next few weeks. More details are coming for the battle of Chasiv Yar. The Ukrainians, according to the Russian sources, abandoned their positions in the central part of Bogdanovka after they, let's say, received some risk situation to the south of Bogdanovka and in the vicinity of the northeastern part of Canal. We're talking about the area in the railways and the forest. So different mappers have already updated their maps showing this territory under complete Russian control. For now we still haven't received any geolocated confirmation of that, but let's wait, maybe soon we're gonna receive some. Anyway, this is very likely the Russians managed to do this, but anyway, we can't say that this foothold is very strong due to some problems with Ukrainian positions on the hill, and because from these positions the Ukrainians still have possibility to control the movement in Bogdanovka itself. So the situation in this area remains and completely almost the same as the situation in Ivanovska until the Russians are able to establish control over the hill. They didn't have any possibilities to complete the battle for Ivanovska. The same story in Bogdanovka. This hill and this forest determines whether the Russians are able to succeed the offensive operation in Bogdanovka or not. Furthermore, the sources reported about additional progress of the armed forces of Russian Federation along the tree lines through the west of Popovo Forest. So this area approximately is also under Russian control. And another important thing about Chasiv Yar, a few days on the 26th of March, the Russians conducted successful Iskander strike on the NATO base, NATO command center in Chasiv Yar, and lots of sources started publishing, a lot of independent sources started publishing different updates about that strike. It was very difficult to understand what kind of results the Russians managed to achieve as a result of that Iskander strike. And the first report, for example, from some Russian sources were received on the 26th of March at 7 p.m. But later the Western sources and pro-Western sources, neutral sources start publishing additional information, and now we got more or less reliable information about the results of Russian strike. Basically, in Chasiv Yar there was a command center and headquarters of the NATO officers, and there was the position and location of the Polish brigadier general by the name of Adam Marchak, and according to information we have, he lost his life as a result of Russian strike, and also a few more NATO officers who maybe was his assistants. So basically the main headquarters of Chasiv Yar defense that was under the responsibility of NATO officers with the Polish roots was destroyed as a result of Russian Iskander strike. That was a very important strike that very likely made the Ukrainians in the area blind and deaf, and we're talking about those Ukrainians who are located on the Russian side of the Siversk Donetsk canal, which confirms that today probably we're going to receive more attempts and new attempts from the Russian side to answer canal itself with the purpose to completely collapse the Ukrainian defense belt and to reach the canal itself in the central part of Chasiv Yar. So today the area promises us to receive very interesting and additional updates. Now we are moving to Avdiivka direction. We have adjusted the map in the vicinity of Semyonovka every single day. During the previous few days, we continue to receive lots of updates about the further Russian progress on the Ukrainian side of the Durna River. The sources reported about the beginning of clashes along the central street inside of Semyonovka, and the sources are said this information was reported and posted by either by the pro-Russian and neutral resources. The pro-Ukrainian sources haven't published anything like that. So for now, we can say that currently this area is, we can color this area as a green zone as the main area of main clashes between Ukrainian and Russian forces. So if the Russians are able to dig in deeper in the area and to move further and to establish control over additional tree lines in the vicinity of this foothold, then this is going to be complete disaster for the Ukrainians, and they will be forced to fall back further to the west. We see this operational space between the towns, and it will give the Russians a lot of time for regrouping, for to think about the current situation and to create the further next plans in the area. We have additional updates from Krasnogorovka. After a few weeks of clashes on the southern part, the Russians decided to stop. Now they're kind of regrouping, and while regrouping, the Russians are suppressing and destroying Ukrainian artillery positions. On this video, for example, we can see another artillery system, AM-198, that was destroyed as a result of Krasnopol hit. To the west of Krasnogorovka, a little bit to the north, we have another video with M777 howitzer of armored forces of Ukraine, which was also discovered by the Russians, and as a result of counter-artillery strike, that howitzer also was destroyed. In Krasnogorovka itself, the Russians managed to discover the position of Ukrainian FPV drone, let's say, operators, and as a result of accurate hit, that building also was destroyed. So the Russians continue clearing operation with artillery, counter-artillery duels. For now, there is still, let's say, FPV drone clearing operation ahead, and only after that, very likely the Russians are going to make another attempt to storm the village from the south. Novomikhailivka got additional updates and different changes and corrections on maps according to different mappers. The Russians, according by Siversk, let's say, established complete control over the farms to the northeast of the village. So approximately, according to, let's say, different sources, this is the current progress and current, let's say, area controlled by the Russians in the area of Novomikhailivka. So the Ukrainians are, let's say, have every single day less and less territories under their control. So for now, just the southern part and the northern part on the western part of the village, but the most difficult part of Novomikhailivka was already bypassed by the Russians. So today they're gonna increase the pressure, gonna move further to the west. Robotina, we have additional gains of the armed forces of Russian Federation on the southern part, and today, this morning, the pro-Russian sources reported that Robotina is about to fall, and this is going to happen very, very soon. Currently, we can't tell exact date, but once again, the Russians are saying that maybe even this week, Robotina will be completely captured and cleared by the Russians. We got some more updates from the Ukrainian-Moldovan border. Another group of another batch of Ukrainians who was trying to escape and save their lives in Moldova were captured by the border detachment and was sent back to probably already to the training center, and very likely they're going to find themselves very soon in some of Marine brigades somewhere in the vicinity of Krynki. Few updates about Kiev and political events. According to information we have, Denmark will not donate the remaining 24 F-16s to Ukraine. They already donated 19 F-16 aircraft and a large and a substantial donation, and Denmark is planning to sell the rest to Argentina. Furthermore, we have some updates from France. The French TV channel LCI discussed the possible scenarios of a French deployment of forces in Ukraine. They classified and classified the possible deployment to 5 options. The first one, France is going just to defend the factories and to send their engineers for this. So the second option, France will demine and clear the territory and to prepare the Ukrainian and to teach the Ukrainian soldiers. Third option, France will defend Odessa And their main purpose is going to be just to protect Odessa and not to allow anyone to enter or to threat the security of Odessa or something like this. The fourth option is French is going to send forces to create some buffer zone and to probably, let's say, to protect the border with Belarus, which will allow the Ukrainians to release additional forces that would be sent further to the line of combat contact. And the fifth option is that the France, shoulder to shoulder with the Ukrainians, will start fighting with the Russians in the trenches and the fortifications. Very interesting options. So we'll see what is going to be next. Obviously, we can tell just for sure that the Ukrainians with the France will send their forces, but for now, still unknown what kind of option they will choose. And if you ask my opinion, very likely that the France will maybe choose the first option, but during the next 3-4 months after deployment, they will, let's say, finish at the final option where the French soldiers with the Ukrainians shoulder to shoulder will fight with the Russians. So they will start at the lowest and they will finish with the heaviest. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon. Have a good day. Bye bye.